Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fabric Developer. Got MJ here. We're going to talk about something that happened in the past 2 weeks in Vegas.
Yeah,
It's the FabCon 2025. So what does FabCon actually stand for, MJ?
yeah. So FabCon is a an event that both of us weren't on. It's an event that we both missed. But
Yeah,
FabCon stands for Fabric Conference, right? So it's a community-run conference. Although obviously a lot of Microsoft people, and a lot of Fabric product team are in there, but like it's still community branded, right? So it's not like an official Microsoft event. Um, yeah. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
I
So
heard, I
there's
heard, I heard a few things. It's a really amazing community event over there.
yeah,
We've got all the like a big guns out there on like YouTube, guys in the cube. It's got a few other very active YouTubers on there as well, MVPs, etc. etc. Yeah, like you said, unfortunately due to family commitments, we both missed out. But there are tons of
yeah,
changes that's been announced, and I think one of the thing I haven't actually seen the actual thing, obviously, but from one of the keynote is kind of sharing the fact that Fabric, it's in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. It's in, I think, not one or two, it's like four of them.
yeah.
So there's like a data integration, there's machine learning, there's data integrator, and there's another one, I can't remember exactly. But there's like four of them. So the consensus seems to be like if you don't use Fabric, you will have to use like four or five different other tools or
Exactly.
platforms to achieve the same thing. And for us who works in the data engineering, data architect, kind of feel like the thing that scares people the most is actually data security, because those security thing and data access, you need to replicate that in like, all those different platforms. So for me, one of the key thing, the benefit of using Fabric really is just simplifying everything down to that one lake level, one lake security with Entra ID just covers like everything. So I think that's the future. Obviously, a lot of things are still being built at the moment, like for
Yeah,
example, deployment pipelines,
yeah,
etc., etc.
yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of stuff out there already. Yeah, so I'll pass it over to you, MJ. I know you've got a few favorite things that you want to go
Yes,
through.
yes, yes. All right. So, okay. So basically, right. If I may just say, right. Again, Fabric. We've been doing this for more than a year now. I think, Dave. Right. Like, and then we're not surprised at this point. Like month by month, there's something new. There's something this. There's something that. Right. Like compared it to when it was Synapse, compared to when it was just Power BI. Although Power BI, there are a lot of features as well. But like the cadence of all of these updates happening, it's just so fast, man. Like so fast. The innovation, the amount of work that they're doing, it's so fast. And like literally, and because I'm particularly working on different aspects of Fabric, right? Like I feel very invested in this thing, and like I'm literally meeting, one of the product managers. Like week by week, I'm meeting another product manager and like discussing this, discussing that, right? But anyway, there's a lot of features I'm super excited about announced during FabCon, which is kind of like within the March 2025 feature summary. I think let's just choose around. Let's try it to be like 5, 10 ish. I mean, well, no promises, but like, let's give it a shot, right? So. There's so much stuff happening in Power BI. We'll skip that mainly because a lot of Power BI people already know and like have been waiting for all of those Power BI updates, right? And it's like a lot of those things been announced. Now, Fabric platform itself, I think these are kind of like the key. That would be like, hey, it's about the platform. It's universal across the different workloads that you're doing, right? So this variable library, I think, and probably this CI/CD feature that are tying them hand in hand. Wherein the whole idea here, Dave, is that we've talked about Git integration before. We've talked about release libraries and stuff like that, but like it's not yet there, man. It's not yet there. Like there's still a lot of like
Yeah,
tiny bits and pieces that you would still want it to be DevOpsy. Like you really still want to go to the DevOps land, and like you
yeah,
still cannot remove Azure DevOps up and even up until today, right? Like, but then there are now a lot
that's
of
right.
these different efforts. Things like, hey, what if we can now have workspace and variable libraries, right? Like you can have these variables within your workspace, right? So that's cool. That means that you can share, and share and set variables. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's like in the dev workspace, I'll connect to the dev database, and then in the production workspace, I'll connect to the production database. At the moment, if we use deployment pipeline, whatever, we still have to manually configure that. Um, yeah, so it's one of those things definitely.
Yeah.
It doesn't look overly complicated, but without it, you can't automate the deployment process.
Yeah, exactly. Although, you and me, we know there's one particular itchy thing about release pipelines in Fabric and Power BI that still, it's still itching us quite a bit, which is the semantic model refresh. So that thing, if you do stages, you still have to change the variable and stuff like that. So this particular thing is a variable you can set on a pipeline level, but it's not yet on the works semantic model parameters. So yeah, just letting you know, right? So for those who are listening, so it's not yet there. Um, the CI/CD pipelines is kind of like trying at the moment to get there as well. But yeah, I think at this point, the way I'll still do it, in a production environment would be maybe the dev. I'll put that into CI/CD, and then um, what I'll do is that I'll still use DevOps to kind of like deploy to the higher environment. Particularly, there's the Fabric CI/CD, whatchamacallit, um, Python library or CLI
Mhm.
that you can actually use. So I think that's still at the moment the way I'm seeing it. That's still the way to go. Um, yeah, and then yeah, anything else you want to talk about the whole CI/CD stuff? But I think this is a bit exciting again. One step forward. But maybe within few months they'll really get there, wherein you don't need the whole DevOps anymore. Like just get there, like done and dusted. um,
Yeah, yeah. I remember there was something to do with the CI/CD on the API side as well.
mm,
Was there some? Can't remember. Yeah, it was a week ago when I glanced through it. But again, it's in that CI/CD space where you can actually, instead of using the ClickOps,
mhm.
you can to a certain degree automate it by code now.
Yep.
Yeah,
So now they've announced a couple of new workloads. Like when we say workloads, like the partners have developed new set of workloads, and they also announced improvements in the development kit. So that means that for things like us who wants to build on top of Fabric, makes it a bit easier now around building an app that uses the one like set of APIs. However, there's still a caveat that the compute layer, meaning the APIs and all those stuff, you still have to bring your own type of thing. So you still need to host it somewhere. So it's not yet within the Fabric capacity, right? So, but I think maybe in the future they'll address that as well. Where in like, hey, maybe I'll create my own web app within Fabric, and then it lives the data and the compute lives in a Fabric capacity in a Fabric item as a Fabric item in a workspace. So that's foreseeable future for this. So um, now yeah, this one multi-tenant org. That's yeah. I think it's very interesting. However, there's still a lot of things to be considered around that. So let me just highlight that really quickly. So the multi-tenant, where's that? Multi-tenant, yeah, organization. Yeah, so basically there are now scenarios where it's, for oh, where's that? Oh, there you go. Yeah, so where you're like a multi-tenanted organization, and it's very, coming from a lot of those Active Directory background back in days wherein like no one has thought of just having one tenancy. Like everyone just kind of like spin up a lot of different Active Directory domains. So and up until today they follow that. So but yeah, basically they now have support for that one in that's in GA. Um, One thing as well that I'm still kind of like waiting for them for the Fabric platform to support is the private linking in a workspace level. Um, so what that means, Dave, is that most of the like Fabric itself, because it's SaaS-based solution, so it's internet accessible, right? Now some organizations doesn't like that, doesn't want to for many
yep,
reasons. Now they want it to be private and pointed, wherein like, hey, that our particular tenancy or workspaces shouldn't be accessible by the internet. Now
yep,
there's that concept of private linking, wherein you basically link your Fabric into a virtual network. Now the problem is that at the moment it's only tied in on a tenancy level. So that means that if you go all in, then that means everything is kind of like private endpointed. And as you may know, would be a lot of pain, a lot of problem for Power BI and like this
mm,
and that. So That's why ideally there's a scenario where you can just create a private link for just a workspace. Let's say your ingestion
Yeah.
layer, like maybe just the ingestion layer is the one that's private endpointed, or the engineering layer, right? But the
Mm.
reporting is accessible and stuff like that. So I think that's a bit missing. So I'm still waiting for that one. Um,
So yeah, on the data engineering side, there's the write back capability.
yes,
That's that's quite a interesting one. So that's can only be done via smart notebooks, right?
yes,
PySpark.
exactly. Yeah. So that is yeah, exactly. That's very interesting. And what's also interesting here, Dave, is the row level and column level security in Spark. So for quite some time now, the data warehouse has that advantage of having row level and column level granularity of security, um,
Yep.
versus the lakehouse. But now, because of that, is now embedded in Spark. Then that means that a lake you can assign RLS and CLS rules on a lakehouse level. So that means that your direct lake later on can just inherit the whole CLS RLS rules. So for those who are not yet familiar with row level security, it's something like Dave and I, we have different roles, but let's say I'm based in in Japan and Dave is based in, let's say, UK. Then we can run the same query against that database or warehouse, but then we have different results because the row level security is applied. So yeah, like it kind of like applies that security on a query level, like on a row.
Yep.
Um, Anything else on data engineering? I mean, a lot of these are kind of like, you know, oh, maybe this one, the user data functions. That's kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
interesting, which is this,
yep,
it's now getting to that territory of like, hey, Fabric is not just an analytical platform, it's now a transactional data platform with Fabric SQL, but now it's also going to that territory of doing compute. So,
yeah. And there's so you can actually so I think one of the scenario I've seen with that one, which is definitely interesting, is where you can actually have a button in the Power BI
Power BI,
report,
yes, yes,
and you can link it to a UDF,
yeah,
which kind of allows you to do the write back via
yes,
PySpark. So
yeah,
you kind of go, it's not just consuming data, there's actually a kind of a pathway to do custom functions for the write back as well. And so that's quite interesting. It doesn't feel like a very straightforward thing to do, but at least if there's like a specific thing that you do need to do it,
yeah. I think in the demo, the use case for that one is, let's say, a sales manager, right? Like looking at sales data, and then, okay, based from this data, maybe I'll just apply a promotion right now. So I'll apply 5% discount. Boop, click button. There you go. Promotion applied, right?
yeah,
So yeah, I think that's one of those. Um, Now, there are a lot of stuff that was mentioned in data science as well, but because like all things AI falls under data science, that's why I myself is in this kind of like excited phase of Fabric. So one thing in particular is the Fabric Data Agent. So it used to be called AI Skills,
hmm,
so now it's called Fabric Data Agent, right? So well, besides the rename, what's also interesting with with Fabric Data Agent is that it's now integrated with Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting, right? Like, so that means that when you have data in Fabric and you want to expose that to your chatbots or your LLMs, then yeah, and then that's where you can easily connect that to um, Copilot Studio or AI Foundry.
yeah.
Um,
Again, it's that integration space that Microsoft is performing so extremely well at the moment, and yeah, Teams is just that natural place where people go and chat, talk to people. And in this
exactly.
case, you talk to agents, and it's quite a seamless experience. And imagine that, once this is a bit more matured, yeah, you can just ask whatever questions, you can
Yeah, and
ask it to create
like
charts and yeah,
obviously this also goes with the whole new MCP craze happening around, right? So it's just like this is a data agent, so that means that you can have multi data agents, like one data agent talking to, let's say, your company information, another data agent doing like real time insights, another data agent doing this, right? And then with MCP and all this different craziness happening around that would allow you to kind of like have that multi agent scenario. So really, really exciting, man. Um,
definitely. Yep.
Data warehouse. So this is that part we're in. it's interesting and funny at the same time, right? Like like for a while now, people who are into SQL Server, right? Like they sometimes they're the ones who are skeptic of Fabric because like there's so much features of SQL Server alone that the whole suite of SSIS, SSAS, SSRS, like just so familiar to them, and like the SQL Warehouse Edition, just capable of so many things. So things like Open Rosette, you know, some of this they have already existed before in the warehouse, but like this time around, like they're these are still I would say, right, like on an investment point of view, Microsoft is still investing in Fabric data warehouse where the future direction is. So I think yeah, like like things around this AI function in data warehouse, right? I think that's going to be interesting, right? That means that you can literally perform a lot of this kind of like LLM based workloads on a warehouse point of view rather than having a separate, like notebooks or PySpark and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's why, those who have invested in T-SQL since the late 80s, they still have a job, yeah, even with this AI era. All right.
Not
Now,
sure.
yeah, well, not sure. Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right? Like, if you have, SQL, like, I guess you'll still find a job out there. Um, yeah. Now
Yeah.
with RTI, I think some of the I would say highlight there is that it now supports MQTT. So that means that it's now going to that, hey, any source for as long as it's MQTT compliant, things and even things like Azure Event Grid is now supported. So I think that's really a
Mm.
good thing. So like, you're not just limited to the popular ones like yeah, Kinesis, Event Hubs and Kafka and stuff like that. Um,
Yep. Interesting. Might fast forward that a little bit. Um, do you still think mirroring is going to be
Yes, yes, I think so
a
too. Like
good? Yep.
here, right? Like now supports Postgres.
Yep.
So again, Postgres is one of my favorite. Well, it's probably my favorite transactional database out there. So that's
Mm.
why I'm very excited that it's now in public preview.
So it was
Yeah,
only available for Azure SQL before
and
in the preview,
managed
right?
instance. Yeah, and
Yep.
Cosmos DB for NoSQL. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Snowflake and Azure Databricks.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's quite a lot,
It's
man. There's
already
there's
pretty
quite a
well.
lot. So just
Yeah.
letting you know, man. But this one here, even Azure SQL Database with a protected firewall is now in preview as well. Even the on-prem one, there it's in private preview. So if you want that, let me know. I know the people who can turn that
Enable
on
it.
for you. Um, but yeah, like I think mirroring is still good, man, because like depends on the capacity that you have. You still have like that kind of like surplus of free storage based on your capacity. So like if
Yeah.
you have a F2, then that means you have 2 terabytes worth of free mirroring data. So
Mm.
and all right, so many stuff there, that was um kind of like announced. But I think the most highlighted announcement, Dave, is Copilot. You're now removing the whole F64 restriction. So
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that
That's
is the
right.
biggest announcement, right? No more, the dramatic F64 and stuff like that. Now, I have some thoughts about it, but first, I want to know your thought about that announcement.
Oh, you mean removing that F64 requirement?
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it to be a little bit weird at the beginning because I was like, why? Was it because you need that much compute to actually enable the thing? But I think like the way that they removed it turns out to be is just you pay more is one of the premium features almost. But I think it makes sense. Like at end of the day, it's all about compute, and that's what Fabric is. The charge model is based on. So I think it's a good thing that they simplified it, and obviously having that. That kind of high level requirement removed will just allow so many other like different use cases that
Mhm.
would make sense for the business. I think it's a great thing. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's very, very clever, right? So it's like I I I have a if this is it's an informal YouTube channel, I would have said that, but because we're still professionals here, um, the way this strategy is really, really good because like first off, there's that high barrier of entry, meaning like, hey, if you because people wants Copilot for like awesome auto-generated Power BI reports, right? But then not everyone can afford that. Like, like and then at the same time, in the beginning of time, Copilot is just kind of like, a little copy paste here and there and a little bit of this and that. But I think where it has come to now is that it's ready. It's like it's actually useful. It's like actually making you productive, right? And now changing that model from being, hey, only those who have a higher, capacity can do it. Now anyone can pretty much use this, right? And
Yeah.
that means that it's also gonna unlock a lot of those different patterns besides just the F64 requirement, things around like, hey, maybe we can now do capacity isolations, separate capacity for production, separate capacity for non-production. Maybe just the development machine uses Copilot because like production doesn't need Copilot, right? So I think there's a lot of those kind of like flexibility now. Um, yeah, and again, I'm very excited on how this is gonna turn out. I think by end of this month, US time, that's when they're gonna turn that on to all the users. But yeah, I guess Fabric is really gaining momentum, man. Like it's getting there. So that's why I'm happy that we're here. We're in
Yeah.
this in this place right now. Yeah.
It is definitely interesting in so many, like you can kind of see the direction about how like different components. I still got the feeling this doesn't feel like a SaaS to me. It feels like a platform to me still.
I
Um,
think to an extent it still is, right? It's just that, but I like come to think of it, like find any SaaS product out there that's moving at this pace. Right? Like let's be honest. Talking about Salesforce, NetSuite, all the ERPs, all the CRMs, Dynamics, everything,
mm,
right? Like no one is moving at this pace. Yeah, like if Microsoft continues at this pace and really get that momentum going, use the Power BI formula, attract more and more, and like get more and more adoption here and there. And I think this is gonna be when I do training and like I end the training by saying that I see the future that you're either just using Excel or Fabric. That's
yeah.
it. But no, nothing in between.
Yeah, and there are a lot of Excel enabled connections in
Yeah.
Fabric now as well, especially in this announcement. So we'll probably end it on that interesting note. Yeah, I completely agree. The direction is amazing. So we'll find out a bit more about what April announcement is going to be like. And you
What's
also
gonna happen at
mentioned the
Build as
next
well? Yeah.
build 2025. Yeah, so
And
we'll,
and and come to think of it, man, it just feels like it was just yeah, almost like a few months ago when Ignite happened, when Build happened. It's like things are just moving so fast, right? Like just yeah,
it is. It is. It's hard to keep up,
yeah,
for sure. So, but we'll try our best to kind of summarize this kind of things for our audience on a monthly basis. And we're still trying to create that fabric training. One of the things that scares me now is the pace that it's going. By the time we finish the training, we have to go back and make so many changes to DP700 certification training already. So, but yeah, so we need to try to get it out there as soon as we can.
yes, absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank you,
everyone. We'll
MJ.
see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.